Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Ashtotra Shatashi Srimad Gaisi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Do you think you could grab the Bhagavatam, please? To know. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 25, the characteristics of King Pranjana. We're on text 22. Sunasam Sudatim Balam Sukapolam Varananam Samavinyasta Karnabhyam Bibratim Kundalashayam Sunasam Sunditim Balam Sukapolam Varananam Samavinyasta Karnabhyam Bibratim Kundalashayam Sunasam Saditim Balam Sukapolam Varananam Samavinyasta Karnabhyam Bibratim Kundalashayam Would you like to chant? Try? All right. All right, so word by word. Translation. Sunasam, very beautiful nose. Sudatim, very beautiful teeth. Balam, the young woman. Sukapolam, nice forehead. Varanam, beautiful face. Sama, equally. Vinyasta, arranged. Karnabhyam, both ears. Bibratim, dazzling. Kundalashriyam, having beautiful earrings. Translation. The woman's nose, teeth, and forehead were all very beautiful. Her ears were equally very beautiful and were bedecked with dazzling earrings. Purport. The body of intelligence enjoys the objects of sense gratification that cover it, such as smell, vision, and hearing. The word suna sam, beautiful nose, indicates the organ for acquiring knowledge by smell. Similarly, the mouth is the instrument for acquiring knowledge by taste, for by chewing an object and touching it with the tongue, we can understand its taste. The word sukapolam, nice forehead, indicates a clear brain capable of understanding things as they are. By intelligence, one can set things in order. The earrings set upon the two ears are placed there by the work of the intelligence. Thus the ways of acquiring knowledge are described metaphorically. Om Gantirandasya Kiranchana Shalakaya Chakshulan Meditamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Pancha Kapadri Vishta Kipa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Let's read the translation again. The woman's nose, teeth, and forehead were all very beautiful. Her ears were equally very beautiful and were bedecked with dazzling earrings. So, within the next few days, or several days, we'll be celebrating celebrating the appearance of Krishna, Lord Krishna, Janmashtami, which within Christianity they have an idea, or the religion is based on Jesus Christ descending from the spiritual world, descending from heaven, coming here to teach. Right, the New Testament. And now, of course, within Christianity, within specifically different churches, organizations, they have different ideas who Jesus is. Some people say Jesus is the Son of God, coming directly from heaven to spread God consciousness, and some say he's God directly. Some say he's both, Son and God. But whatever the case is, the idea within these different religious systems is that he's descending from heaven, coming from a higher place to teach or spread God consciousness. So within Krishna consciousness, or within the Hare Krishna movement, it's based on, say practically speaking, that similarly, just as Jesus came, Krishna came. And Krishna is not the Son of God, but Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he spoke the Bhagavad Gita, which is Song of God. The literal translation is that, Song of God. His appearance is coming up, when he appeared in this world. roughly or a little more than 5,000 years ago, within Vrindavan, a place in India now. It's not exactly India, but Vrindavan, spiritual place. So in relation to that, I'll just read a few excerpts from the Nectar of Devotion to meditate on Krishna. And but before that, last night I was reading Krishna book, and in the prayers of the demigods to Krishna while he's just about to appear, Srila Prabhupada's writing that people, they have a certain conception of God, and specifically the conception is God is old, because he has to be the oldest, right? I mean, he was there before this whole material creation, and he's the oldest. So based on that particular conception, they depict God as being old, with whatever, just an old man, gray hair and everything, the whole thing. Beard, yeah, big long gray beard, and wrinkles, and looks like he's old. But Srila Prabhupada makes a point in that particular chapter. He's saying that yes, he's the oldest, but the Brahma Samhita, one particular book of the Vedic literature, spiritual literature from India, is saying that yes, he's old, but he's Nava Yovanamcha. He is ever youthful. Ever youthful. So therefore you see pictures of Krishna, and you never see him as an old man. Although when he was here on this particular earth, right, he stayed, 125 years? But it looked like he didn't pass the age of 16. Everybody's wish, right? For themselves. So yeah. So these particular excerpts I'll read, it describes some details of Krishna, and as our spiritual teacher Srila Prabhupada would say, we know Krishna, we know God's name, Krishna. We know his address, right? Spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan specifically, the name. And we know the phone number, right? What's the phone number? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that's,
You never get a busy signal.
Yeah, never get a busy signal. It's a clear call. Well, we hope, right? Clear call, clear connection. There was anyways, there's this little, I'm not exactly sure where it came from, but it's kind of amusing, I thought. But apparently, Pope visited, or a Vaishnav, Hare Krishna person, they visited the Pope, right? And the Pope had a telephone, a golden telephone. And the Vaishnav, the devotee, they asked, well, what is this phone? He said, oh, that's my phone. I use it to call God. So, and the devotee said, oh, okay, well, nice. And so then the devotee goes back to where he lives, Vrindavan, modern day Vrindavan, the place where Krishna appeared, and he's there, and chanting Hare Krishna, engaged in spiritual activities there. It's a good town to do that in. Hard to forget Krishna there. Of course, it's possible too, but so then the Pope visited Vrindavan, and how does it go? I'm forgetting now.
Well, the Pope, so we had to pay a certain amount.
Here, you have a microphone? Can you give him a microphone?
My joke?
Yeah, here.
No, you have to. So, when the Vaishnava, he's at a conference, and they've invited people from around the world, different religious groups, and so they also invite some Vaishnavas, and he sees the gold phone, and he says, "Hey, can I use it? Want to try it out?" Pope says, "Sure." He says, "But don't talk long. It's super expensive."
Okay, that's a very important point.
It's an important point. So the devotee calls. He doesn't have any desire, he doesn't have any anxiety, he doesn't have any needs, so he just wants to glorify Krishna. So he chants a few verses, Govinda Mari Purisham, glorifying the Surah, and then he's done. And the Pope says, "Jeez, Well, even that, it was $2,000, but don't worry, I'll sell a ring and pay for it, no problem, So there it is. So later on, the Pope is visiting India. He goes to see his Vaishnav friend. He goes to his Vaishnav friend's house, and he sees his Vaishnav friend also has a phone. He says, hey, the Vaishnav says, yeah, I got the idea from you. So Pope says, yeah, I got a lot on my mind. Can I use it? Can I just... And the Vaishnav says, sure. And the guy talks, and this anxiety, and this concern, and what to do about this and that, and, so much. He gets, oh my gosh, it's a half an hour. Must be $15,000. Vaishnav says, don't worry about it. Here in Vrindavan, it's a local call.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. That's
Krishna's there in Vrindavan. Yeah, one time I gave a Sunday feast talk at the Las Vegas Temple, and I told that, and I managed to pull it off, I think. And it was interesting. Right when I was telling that, a phone rang, ring, 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 and I was anyway. So I kind of joking with the crowd. Well, I hope so, but I was just joking with the crowd, So yeah, we know the address, the name, phone number. What else? Everything, so many descriptions are there. So, yeah, there's some descriptions here in this book called The Nectar Devotion, so I'll just read that. This is, all right, one second, please. This is The Nectar Devotion, chapter 26, Stimulation for Ecstatic Love. And specifically, I'm not going to start from the beginning of that chapter, but a few pages in, where it's starting to describe Krishna's flute. Krishna plays the flute. All right. As far as his flute is concerned, it is said that the vibration of this wonderful instrument was able to break the meditation of the greatest sages. Krishna was thus challenging Cupid by advertising his transcendental glories all over the world. There are three kinds of flutes used by Krishna. So instead of learning, all types of facts and figures and, of this world, you could try to memorize this. Like some devotees were telling me, I was surprised actually. I don't know how they do it. I don't know, maybe but some people could do it. Maybe it's more common than I thought, but they memorize and somehow they remember from first grade all their teachers' names, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 12th, and I can remember a few of them at the most. But yeah, we could use our intelligence, use our memory abilities to remember things like this. This is important. Just like Dravida Prabhu is a good example of that. Uses his memory capacity to store all types of Krishna information. It's important. There are three kinds of flutes used by Krishna. One is called Venu, one is called Murli, and the third is called Vamshi. Venu is small, not more than 6 inches long, with 6 holes for whistling. Murli is about 18 inches long with a hole at the end and 4 holes on the body of the flute. This kind of flute produces a very enchanting sound. The Vamsi flute is about 15 inches long with 9 holes on its body. Krishna used to play on these 3 flutes occasionally when they were needed. Krishna has a longer Vamshi which is called Mahananda or Sammohini. When it is still longer, it is called Akarshani. When it is even longer, it is called Anandani. The Anandani flute is very pleasing to the cowherd boys and is technically called Vamshuli. These flutes were sometimes bedecked with jewels. Sometimes they were made of marble and sometimes of hollow bamboo. When the flute is made of jewels, it is called Sammohini. And made of gold, it is called Akarshani. All right, so we'll test you a few days, see if you... Krishna's buffalo horn. Krishna used a buffalo horn as a bugling instrument. This instrument was always highly polished and circled with gold bands, and on the middle there was a hole. Regarding these instruments, there is a metaphorical statement about a gopi named Taravali. It is said that Taravali was bitten by the most venomous snake of Krishna's flute. Then, in order to neutralize the poisonous effect, she drank the milk produced by the buffalo horn in the hand of Krishna. But instead of decreasing the poisonous effect, it increased it 1,000 times. The gopi was thus put into the most miserable poison condition. Okay, so we'll read some more. Next, the attraction of Krishna's leg bells. A certain gopi once stated to her friend, so gopi is a cowherd girl, for those who are not familiar with the term gopi. So it's a devotee of Krishna. A certain gopi once said to her friend, "My dear friend, when I heard the sound of the leg bells of Sri Krishna, I immediately started to go out of the house to see him. But most regrettably, my superiors were present just before me at that time, and I could not go out." Krishna's conch shell. Krishna's conch shell is known as Panchajanya. This Panchajanya conch is also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna sounded it before the battlefield of Kurukshetra. It is said that when Lord Krishna blows on his transcendental conch shell, the wives of the demons become subject to abortions, and the wives of the demigods become blessed with all auspiciousness. In this way, the sound of Krishna's conch shell used to vibrate and circulate all over the world. Right, Krishna's footprints, special footprints. It is said in Srimadbhagavatam that when Akrura, who drove Krishna from Vrindavan to Mathura, saw the footprints of Krishna on the land of Vrindavan, his ecstatic love for Krishna increased so much that the hairs on his body stood up. His eyes became overflooded with tears, and in such ecstasy he jumped out of the chariot and fell down on the ground and began to chant, "How wonderful this is! How wonderful this is!" Similar feelings were expressed by the gopis when they were going to the bank of the Yamuna and saw Krishna's footprints in the dust. When Krishna walked on the ground of Vrindavan, the marks of his soul, flag, thunderbolt, fish, a rod for controlling elephants, and a lotus flower, would be imprinted upon the dust of the land. The gopis became overwhelmed simply at seeing those marks on the ground. Okay. Krishna's places of pastimes. One devotee has exclaimed, "Oh, I have not as yet visited the wonderful places where the pastimes of the Lord were performed. But simply by hearing the name of Mathura, I have become overwhelmed with joy." Krishna's favorite plant. What's his favorite plant? Yes, tulsi. Lord Krishna is very fond of tulsi leaves and buds. So this is made out of tulsi here, tulsi plant. And also we have our chanting beads, tulsi. And we have our nice greenhouse full of tulsi plants. Lord Krishna is very fond of tulsi leaves and buds. Because tulsi buds are usually offered up to the lotus feet of Krishna, a devotee once prayed to the tulsi buds to give him some information about the lotus feet of the Lord. The devotees expected that the tulsi buds would know something about the glories of Lord Sri Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna's devotees. Okay, we have two more. One may sometimes become overwhelmed with joy by seeing a devotee of the Lord. It's a good policy. When Dhruva Maharaj saw two associates of Narayan approaching him, he immediately stood up out of sincere respect and devotion and remained before them with folded hands. But because of his ecstatic love, he could hardly offer them a proper reception. There's a statement by a gopi who addressed Subal, a friend of Krishna. "My dear Subal, I know that Krishna is your friend and that you always enjoy smiling and joking with him. The other day I saw you both standing together. You were keeping your hand upon Krishna's shoulder, and both of you were joyfully smiling. When I saw the two of you standing like that in the distance, my eyes at once became overflooded with tears." All right, last one. Special days for remembering Krishna. There are many statements about the festive days in connection with Krishna's different activities. One of these festive days is Janmashtami, the day of Krishna's birth. So that will be held on Tuesday, upcoming Tuesday. This Janmashtami day is the most opulent festival day for the devotees, and it is still observed with great pomp in every Hindu house in India. Sometimes even the devotees of other religious groups take advantage of this auspicious day and enjoy the performance of the ceremony of Janmashtami. Ecstatic love for Krishna is also aroused on the days of Ekadashi, which are other festive days in connection with Krishna. So festival days such as Janmashtami and Ekadashi and so many different other days there. It says here, remember the chapter title, Stimulation for Ecstatic Love. So Prabhupada says here, ecstatic love for Krishna is also aroused on days of Ekadashi. So these are special days, it's Janmashtami coming up in so many days, where you could say the mercy of Krishna or the blessings of Krishna are more easily accessible to make spiritual advancement. So we could try for that on these days. Okay, so now speak a little bit about the Srimad Bhagavatam verse and purport. Yes. 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 Yeah. Can you pass the mic, please?
You read that Taravali was bitten by the most venomous snake of Krishna's flute, and she thought milk would counteract the poison. So when she heard Krishna blow on his buffalo horn, instead of decreasing the poisonous effect, it increased it 1,000 times. The gopi was thus put into the most miserable poison condition. Do you mind just...
Helping us out with that?
I don't think I want to hear it. If
So what does it mean by miserable condition?
Well, within Krishna consciousness, there's idea of you could say when we become connected with Krishna, or union with Krishna, we're there, and then there's an idea of separation from Krishna. So separation from Krishna, it's when we've had the association of Krishna, then Krishna left or he leaves. So that happens sometimes, and you could say externally, and even through words and scripture, sometimes it is said to be like miserable. But even though that's said, like we have the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna come again 500 years ago to experience, it's God himself wanted to experience what it's like to be a devotee. So we have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his later life experiencing these very high, the most high levels of love of God, love of Krishna. But some of the descriptions, you can't find those descriptions anywhere else in terms of saints or anybody experiencing that, in that he would be experiencing so much separation from Krishna, he'd be rubbing his face against the wall, and the devotees would have to protect him, so they were scared he was going to get hurt, his body. So, and you could say that externally this seemed like, a miserable state. And even some mundane scholars will say, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was a good, religious reformer and, saint, whatever, in India, and he did many good things, right? He brought people from low backgrounds up to, higher ranks of society, this and that. But later he kind of developed some strange behavior, I think epileptic, behavior, stuff like that. Some strange ideas they have. So, but we accept from our spiritual authorities and acharyas that it wasn't some mundane disease or something. This was the highest levels of love for God, love for Krishna. But it seemed externally like a miserable state. So similarly, when it said here that, it was miserable, but it was actually, she was experiencing the highest happiness, although it's said like that. So yeah, that does need a little fluffing out. So anyway, I don't know if anybody else has a thing about that. Yes.
Thank you for that. I think that you could also interpret that you have these things going on in Vrindavan where you have the gopis who are, they're married and they have sometimes children and they're leading very pious lives. But Krishna, when he plays his flute, he attracts them, and they're attracted to meet him and be with him, which is outside the strict laws of Vedic culture.
Mm-hmm.
So in one sense, she's feeling, well, it's, oh my God, I'm being attracted to Krishna. How can I counteract it? Well, maybe if I hear his buffalo horn, the milk of the buffalo horn, just feeling like it's poison. But that just attracts her more.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's another way of looking at it. That on one side, of course, it's good to be attracted to Krishna, but there's this whole pastime in Vrindavan where it's illicit, and that makes it more exciting. But in the ultimate calculation, is completely pure.
Yeah.
But this is the way Krishna's pastimes are presented.
Yeah.
Krishna.
Thank you. Okay. So just a little bit about the verse and purport. So here we're hearing this metaphorical description of King Puranjana, which Narada Muni, a great sage, saintly person, he is instructing this king who is materially attached and just bewildered and confused in so many ways. So this sage is instructing him on spiritual principles. And he does that by telling this metaphorical storyline he has. And so that's what we're hearing about now, this verse and purport. And how specifically this person, this man in this story is wandering in the forest, and he runs into a woman. And this is what the description is, right? Beautiful nose, beautiful teeth, ears, which is interesting because a lot of times you don't hear about, beautiful ear. But beautiful ears and earrings. And Prabhupada explains how in the purport, how these different, like for example, the Sukupolam, nice forehead, indicates a clear brain capable of understanding things as they are. So he relates how the different description of this particular woman relates to things like that. So, but the basic, you could say, lineup or basic principles that are going to be described more and more as this goes on is that pretty much this Puranjan, he, instead of directing his love and affection and everything towards God, he's directing it towards a woman. And so that is bewildering for him, and it's bewildering for her. And this particular storyline is describing the dangers of that, because the world, it's not that people can't have relations. I mean, people have relationships. It's not that, okay, everybody, go off to the Himalayas, become a monk, become a nun, something like that. Not necessarily. But saying that while engaging in all these different relationships, families, friends, this and that, we have to be careful that we don't get completely absorbed in them to the degree that we completely forget God, get Krishna. So that's the danger. And Krishna talks about this in the Bhagavad Gita, the 3rd chapter, the end of the 3rd chapter, I believe. And that he talks about how a living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered in their eternal enemy in the form of lust. And lust just doesn't mean like sexual lust. It means material desires that do not bring one closer to Krishna, closer to God, but brings one away from him. Hedonistic materialism. So that's an enemy. Means an enemy has to be fought. It has to be conquered, and therefore, if one conquers an enemy, they're considered to be a hero or heroine. So that's what's going to be described in the next few verses in purport. That we spiritual practitioners, we have to become heroes, heroines. Means conqueror of this enemy, conqueror specifically of the senses. The senses have urges, they have desires, and if one doesn't control them, they're in big trouble. Big trouble. And although that this pleasure from the senses may seem nice in the beginning, and maybe from a material perspective it is, but in so many cases, without control of the senses, it's a complete disaster. Just like smoking cigarettes. I mean, it may seem very pleasing. I don't know exactly why. I can't exactly understand. And I think in America, I don't know if there's a decline of the youth smoking cigarettes. I mean, maybe they're doing other stuff too, but there's a decline of cigarettes, but then they're, okay, let's try something better. Maybe they realize cigarettes aren't the way. But, yeah. Vaping, yeah. So, but there's so many cases, like my mother, she was just telling me that she had this book rack, the small little book box, smart box, where you put money in the box, there's some books there. So she has a few of those going in Oregon. She has some boxes of Prabhupada's books. One devotee, Bhakti he sponsored some books. So she picked them up when she was here last. And so she recently put one in a laundromat. So the owner of a particular laundromat said, oh yeah, by the way, my sister-in-law, she owns another laundromat across the town, so you could put one there too. Just tell her I said so. So mother said, okay, fine. Then she went over to that other laundromat, and she was speaking with the sister-in-law. Well, she wasn't speaking to her, actually. I mean, she was speaking to her, but what happened with this person, owner of a laundromat, is that she completely lost her voice. Like, completely. Like, it's not coming back. She got cancer, and they had to have some surgical operation, this and that. And she completely lost her voice. And she had to write out what she wanted to say to my mother, Because my mother was saying, oh, please let us put these books here. They say, they really helped me and my son, this and that. And then the woman wrote out on a piece of paper, yes, exclamation mark, go for it. So it's pious credit there. But yeah, she just couldn't control herself. And then she ended up like that. From smoking. Yeah, smoking cigarettes. So, and there's so many cases like that within the world. That's practically the main reason people get in trouble. Why are all the jails filled up? I mean, if you really analyze it, people just losing control of their mind and senses. So therefore, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, control them, conquer them, and don't be a victim of them. And in this way, be a hero, a spiritual hero, spiritual heroine. And lastly is that, anyways, it's kind of amusing, but Srila Prabhupada, when he was in Los Angeles, he saw a billboard. And the billboard, of course, is Los Angeles. I mean, so many strange billboards there. But somehow this billboard said, question, is there sex after death? That was the question. So Prabhupada, he spoke on that in the class. And Prabhupada was saying, yes, I saw this billboard and it said, is there sex after death? And then Prabhupada was joking. He said, well, if they think there's sex after death, then they think, okay, I'm not scared of death then, I'm not scared of death. There's sex, that's okay. But Prabhupada was saying, yes, there is sex after death. And he was saying specifically the principle of reincarnation. That, okay, you could keep on going around the cycle. And he said, sometimes you're a god, and the heavenly planets, higher planets. Sometimes you're a dog, sometimes you're, a hog, this and that. And yeah, it's going on, life after life. So, anyways, this is, you could say, an idea of lust, or a particular principle of lust, of course, that sexual lust. And that also has to be controlled in the sense and ultimately conquered, because that is also, as this story goes on, it is a huge stumbling block towards developing one's relationship with God or Krishna, because it's a distraction. So therefore, conquer so many things, senses, and become enlightened and spiritual, and then go to the spiritual world, where Krishna is. That's what we were just reading about earlier. And of course, that's a big subject in itself, but that was practically what I wanted to say about this verse in essence, abbreviated form. And yeah, last thing is that we have to be intelligent, as it says here. We have to, that is the gift of human life, to be intelligent, specifically to try to use our intelligence, how to make spiritual advancement. Not use our intelligence how to, do so many other things, but use it how to make spiritual advancement. And that's the difference between, as Prabhupada describes later in the next few purports, the material hero and a spiritual hero, heroine. They use their intelligence differently. So, all right, does anybody have any comments or questions about any of that verse or purport? All right. Yeah, Alex, you have some question or comment? You could say comment or no? Okay. What's for breakfast? I could tell you definitely. Burritos. Burritos are for breakfast every Saturday. So. That's why they're here. They heard about the burritos. So yeah, that's going to be around the corner, just any minute now. So, all right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.